I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her.
The envelope sat unopened on her dressing room table at ABC's studios. Inside were the results from PBS's Finding Your Roots that would shatter everything Sunny Hostin thought she knew about herself. For years, The View's fiercest advocate had been television's most powerful voice against systemic racism, calling out America's slave-owning past with unwavering conviction. Now, she was about to discover her own bloodline held the very secret she'd spent her career fighting against. The DNA results revealed more than just ancestry. They exposed a devastating truth. Sunny's third great-grandfather wasn't just wealthy, he was a slave owner. The same hands that penned purchase orders for human beings had helped create the lineage of one of modern television's most outspoken critics of racial injustice. As cameras rolled, and Henry Louis Gates Jr. prepared to reveal her family's darkest chapter, Sunny had no idea she was moments away from becoming the very thing she'd rallied against. "I spent my whole life fighting other people's legacy of slavery," she would later confess. "I never imagined I'd have to face my own." Once the revelation broke, Greg Gutfeld quickly seized the opportunity to call out what he saw as glaring hypocrisy. He didn't miss a chance to dismantle Sunny's public persona. Known for his sharp commentary, Gutfeld thrives on exposing contradictions in the public narratives of figures like Sunny. For years, she had built her career on criticizing America's legacy of racism. But now, faced with the same legacy within her own family, how would she respond? Gutfeld pressed her with a question that rippled across the media. Now that you know your family's history, will you reconsider your constant lectures about systemic racism? This wasn't just a question. It was a challenge, pushing Sunny to hold herself to the same standards she imposed on others. Gutfeld wasn't just calling her out. He was forcing her to reflect on her values. Gutfeld's critique hit a nerve. He didn't just question Sunny's commitment to racial justice. He accused her of applying a double standard. He pointed out that while she condemned America's past sins, she dismissed her family's involvement as just what they did back then. This stark contradiction left little room for Sunny to hide. Gutfeld had exposed a personal flaw and highlighted how identity politics often shield public figures from accountability. So how did Sunny react? Was she shaken? Did she reflect on her family's past? No, instead, she brushed it off with a casual dismissal. Well, that's just what they did back then. It wasn't just the fact that Sunny dismissed her family's role in slavery. It was the tone with which she did it. She referred to her family's actions as simply a fact of life. There was no acknowledgement of the pain caused by slavery or the broader systemic oppression her family participated in. For many, this felt like a deflection. Here was a woman who had spent years holding others accountable for their historical transgressions, only to shrug off the same responsibility when it came to her family. This inconsistency didn't sit well with her audience, and social media erupted with reactions. Many echoed Gutfeld's sentiment, accusing her of hypocrisy. Her dismissive response seemed less like an attempt at reflection and more like an attempt to avoid confronting the uncomfortable truth. Critics pointed out that, unlike her usual approach with others, Sunny didn't hold herself to the same standard. As expected, the internet erupted. Clips of Gutfeld's brutal takedown spread rapidly, with polarized reactions flooding social media. Those who supported Gutfeld felt that Sunny's dismissal exposed a deeper issue with modern-day activism. They argued that it was a perfect example of how identity politics shields powerful figures from scrutiny. Gutfeld had exposed the truth. Sunny, despite her critiques of others, had failed to apply the same standards to her own life. On the other hand, Sunny's defenders argued that she was still processing the discovery. They pointed out that such revelations can take time to process, and it was unreasonable to expect immediate reflection. For them, it was a moment of personal growth. However, despite this defense, the focus remained on how Sunny handled the situation. Many felt that her failure to engage thoughtfully only reinforced the issue Gutfeld had raised, the dangers of performative activism. But beyond the clash between Gutfeld and Sunny, this moment highlighted a much larger conversation about hypocrisy in public discourse. It wasn't just about Sunny Hostin's family history. It was about how identity politics can shield people from criticism and how this undermines meaningful dialogue. Gutfeld's critique wasn't just about one person. It was a broader commentary on how modern-day activism often involves using one's identity to shield themselves from scrutiny. Public figures frequently use their personal experiences to justify their criticisms of society. But when confronted with uncomfortable truths about their own past, the narrative shifts. This dynamic creates a culture where the loudest critics of systemic issues avoid the same kind of scrutiny they demand of others. Instead of engaging in meaningful dialogue, the conversation becomes about protecting one's narrative. Gutfeld's question was a direct challenge to this mindset. He wasn't just pushing Sunny. He was pushing the entire audience to think critically about the standards we set for ourselves. The fallout wasn't just limited to Sunny and Gutfeld. It sparked a broader conversation about race, identity, and the standards we set for public figures. For many, this moment wasn't just about one person's family. It was about how we confront uncomfortable truths about our past. The debate exposed a broader tension. How do we balance holding people accountable for their actions with allowing room for personal growth? It also raised the question of how we reconcile our public personas with private histories. How do we engage with the painful truths of our past while still striving for a better future? At the heart of this controversy is a question that challenges all of us. How do we balance critiquing others with honest reflection on our own history? Sunny's revelation wasn't just about her family. It was a wake-up call for all of us. How often do we ignore contradictions in our own lives to push a larger agenda? And when confronted with these contradictions, how do we respond? The clash between Sunny and Gutfeld wasn't just about one person's family. It was a reflection of the cultural landscape we all navigate. It's a challenge to examine how we reconcile our values with the expectations we place on others. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon for future updates.